Hey guys, Tom here. It is Friday, and around here, that means happy hour. Today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I'm not going to talk about a cocktail necessarily, but I'm going to talk about a liquor. And specifically what kind of liquor? Today is all about whiskey. And there's all kinds of whiskey. There's blended whiskey, Scotch whiskey, bourbon whiskey, rye whiskey, and Irish whiskey, American whiskey, Canadian whiskey. It's a myriad of the different types of whiskeys there are. And today I'm going to talk about whiskey and specifically using them in a couple different kind of classic cocktails and hopefully give everybody something for their taste, and we'll see how it goes. The first thing I want to talk to you about is your standard highball. There's two schools of thought when it comes to a highball. First, you need to know that a highball isn't necessarily a drink. A highball is a type of drink. If you say anything to a bartender like, I want X and Y, you're asking for a highball. Whether you're asking for a 7 and 7, Scotch and soda, vodka and cranberry, vodka and orange juice, gin and tonic, anything like that, if it's a liquor and a mixer, it's a highball. Now, that being said, I know when I was young, and I'm sure a lot of you, either now or your parents, I remember my parents would have dinner parties and it would be like, hey, you want a highball? Hey, you want a highball? And a highball was simply this drink. You'd get a glass, fill the glass with ice. The whiskey of your choice, in my case, I'm just going to use regular blended whiskey. And they put some in. Say they put in, I don't know, 1.5 ounces maybe. And of course, our parents never measured. So you put in 1.5 ounces of whiskey. And generally speaking, in our house, it was whiskey and ginger ale. You could put a nice twist of lemon in there. It's a twist, so twist it over there. You want to get those oils in there. That was the great classic highball from my childhood. Okay, next we're going to step it up. Now I remember my dad drinking these when we used to go out to dinner. And this is the classic whiskey Manhattan. And the origin of the Manhattan, there is some debate of how this started. Some people say in the mid 1870s it was invented for a party that Lady Randolph Churchill was throwing for then presidential candidate Samuel Tilden in New York. However, this is disputed because at the time, when she was supposedly in America having this party, Lady Churchill was actually in England getting ready to give birth to her son Winston Churchill. So that's been disputed. More popular story is it was invented in the late 1800s in a little bar off Houston Street in Broadway by a guy named Black. And that's all I know. It's a guy named Black. He invented this drink and called it the Manhattan. And it's a classic American whiskey cocktail. And this is how simple it is to make.
Put a couple drops of bitters in the bottom of a cocktail glass shaker. Add some ice, and then about 1/2 ounce of sweet vermouth. And then add a couple ounces of your favorite blended whiskey and stir it up. Then strain it into a nice chilled cocktail glass and garnish it with a maraschino cherry.
So that's the Manhattan, a simple, easy, classic American cocktail that you can serve to your guests at your next party. Moving right along. The next one, we're going to step up a little bit. Well, not step up, but it's a little different. And this one, I actually used to make a lot of these when I tended bar. My mom used to drink these. And that is the whiskey sour. Now, you can make anything sour. It basically just means it's a it's a lemon drink. And how these came about, or supposedly legend is, way back in the day, the English sailors, they would be on ships, and in order to keep them from getting scurvy, they would give them citrus fruit like limes, lemons, oranges, and along with the citrus fruit that they had, they couldn't drink water because they would get sick from it, so they had to drink alcohol. And they would drink all different things. I think a lot of times they drank rum or brandy or whatever. But this derived and progressed into the combination of the liquor and the lemon becoming the sour drink. And there's also a couple different variations on a sour. Somewhere along the line, people would put a little bit of egg white in it. Now, I don't recommend egg white or raw egg for anybody that has any health issues that would prevent that. I'm going to show it to you with it. You don't use a lot of it, just enough to make it frothy. And another thing, I'm going to show you it in, you don't need special equipment. I'm just going to use a little mason jar. And when you're using the egg white, you actually mix the stuff without the ice first, because then that's what'll get it frothy. So I'm just going to put a little bit of egg white, 2 ounces of bourbon. I'm going to use an ounce of lemon, fresh lemon. Now don't be having a party and buying that stuff in the jar that says sour mix. That's, you know, treat your guests and your family better than that. Squeeze a couple of lemons, it won't kill you. And then an equal part, another ounce of simple syrup, which is basically just equal parts sugar and water. You bring to a boil on the stove to dissolve it, and then let it cool, and you store it in the fridge. And then you just shake it. If you have a shaker, use a shaker. If you don't have a shaker, use a mason jar. And shaking it without the ice will get that egg white nice and frothy. So then after that, you can put some ice in there, get it nice and cold. And then you want to strain it. I'm just going to pour it back in this shaker to make it easier for me to strain. And you want to serve it in a sour glass. A sour glass is basically just like a regular tall glass, but I don't have that, so I'm going to use this kind of champagne glass. And what's going to happen is the foam will kind of separate a little bit and rise to the top. And then you can garnish that with a little orange, cherry, and that is a lovely whiskey sour cocktail. And finally, the last drink on today's whiskey parade is the John Collins. Now, contrary to what we know today, the original John Collins was actually made with gin. And it was made with not good gin. So what would happen is people would go to the bar and they would order a John Collins, but they would say, make it with Old Tom gin. So as everybody started ordering it with Old Tom gin, it became a Tom Collins, which is the same drink made with gin. And this drink was supposedly invented by a fella named John Collins, who worked at this place in London. How it transpired from gin to whiskey, I'm not really sure, but Collins is basically the same drink as a whiskey sour with soda in it, without the egg. And there's all kinds of Collins. I'm going to make you a John Collins today. So same principle. We're going to have a big glass of ice, 2 ounces of bourbon, and then back to the fresh, I stress fresh, lemon, and simple syrup, equal parts lemon and simple syrup. Then you want to get your shaker top. And then in this, unlike the highball, you want to put this in a nice tall glass. You take your nice shaken sour base, fill it almost to the top. And then all you're going to do is top it off with a little bit of club soda. Again, your nice fruit garnish. And you have the Limmer Hotel, John Collins. So that's it, guys. 4 great American drinks made with some kind of whiskey. You know, don't be afraid to give old blended whiskey a try. It's a classic liquor to make some classic cocktails. That's it for me. I hope you enjoyed this. Make one of these this weekend. As you can see, they're really not that difficult at all. Share them with your friends, share them with your family, but remember, share them responsibly. And as always, until I see you next time, take care of yourself and your home. Cheers.